Yes, it worked. It didn't hang up. Hello. I've got a legal obligation to tell you that I'm recording you, so I don't catch you out.
That's cool. There's a big red button that says Richie's recording, so I'm good.
There's a note up the top of the screen which tells me they're really big on there, huh? Hey, so I am talking with Dr. Michelle Dickinson, who is a nanotechnologist. She's a very, very well-regarded scientist here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I think, where did we first meet?
Oh, Richie, it's been years. I have no idea. It goes back so far. It's at
Yeah,
least 10 years ago.
it is. Yeah, I think you were doing jujitsu maybe at Tukaha,
Yeah, maybe we met on a mat. That's right. Yeah.
and and then you invited me to. This is what stands out in my memory. You invited me rock climbing, and I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. But then I didn't think about the fact that I have a quite the fear of heights, and I chickened out. And you must have been like, whoa.
You were so good. No, man, you were so good. It was great.
That's very kind of you. Yeah, and we've broadly seen each other around the way for some time. Well, you're on lockdown, but you were just telling me before we started recording that you decided to stay at your, what do we call this, laboratory?
Yeah. So look, I realised we were going into lockdown for 4 weeks, and the world was desperate for content. They're desperate for scientists and science translators to actually communicate all of the stuff that was coming in, and we had no idea what the world was going to look like. So I'm really lucky. Our office downstairs, there's a residential property above it, and the tenants had just moved out, so it was empty. So I called our landlord and I was like, "Hey, you know this empty house above it, above our office? Can we rent it from you for lockdown?" And she was like, "Yes." I'm like, "Cool." So camp bed came in. We built this studio in like 2 days, and here we are, camping at the office.
Amazing. That is amazing. So we being you and your husband?
Yeah, and my dog who's sitting
Oh,
here.
and your dog. Hey, Pooch. Is your husband a scientist as well?
No, he's not. He's a tech geek, but he's an entrepreneur. So.
Okay, cool. How's it going with the lockdown dynamic? Are you guys bickering yet?
Oh, like everybody, it's close quarters. I've had my fair share of meltdowns. So it's been pretty stressful for us because obviously our business is based on live events. We tour around the world with our live science shows, and we watched in one day every single one of our events for the whole year cancel. So our income went from okay to zero. And so it's been pretty stressful for us. And, any couple that are married as well as run a business know that there are days that are not pretty and you're not proud of. I've had a few of those days, but we're okay. We're surviving.
I appreciate you being honest about that because Claire, my partner, and I, we're largely really great, but it's hard having like a 6-year-old around all the time, and you don't have day night anymore, and
you don't get to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Go. And for me, physical exercise, right? I'm an ocean baby. Like I want to be out in the ocean. I get all my stress out from kite surfing, and I can't do that. And I'm feeling really like I'm not able to release some of that stuff I normally do.
Are you doing some home workout stuff? Because there's a lot of really good stuff online at the moment.
There is, and there's, we're kind of like lots of people. I don't have an outdoor space. I'm trapped for space, and I go to the park, and that's pretty much all I can do right now. So yeah, trying to work on it. But it's definitely not. Everybody finds their flow. Everybody knows their sport that is their thing. That doesn't just physically tire you, but mentally is good for you. And yeah, I'm missing my ocean sports.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I miss getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
by my friends.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to fill the space now that all your work has dried up? And for the foreseeable future, that must be stressful as hell.
Yeah, so we're some company, like if you own a coffee shop, I'm guessing it's closed for a bit, but you think about, well, at least we can reopen and maybe bring back trade. We can't do that. All of our global theatre shows have cancelled around the world, so there's no light at the end of the tunnel for what we were doing. So we had to say to our staff, hey, we love you guys, but business as we know it has changed. We've got a couple of options. One, we can take the government subsidy, we can pay everybody out, and we can just say, hey, that was a fun ride, we'll close the business. Or B, we can just see if we can do something different in a really short period of time. So that's what we've done. We've pivoted. We've built a brand new business called Nano Lab. It's an online education platform to help kids build their superpowers by building superpowers, basically, with anything you have in lockdown, so paper and tape. So what we normally do is help kids to build things like the superpower of flight, the superpower of seeing with different vision. And so we're doing this online program. It's $1 a day. It's a buy one, give one. So everyone that we sell We donate to a family who can't afford one right now because we know times are tough. And it's a 10-week program basically that helps keep your kids have structure, because a lot of parents are saying we just need the structure now that there's no school in place. And every morning we send the parents a cheat sheet, because obviously we're not all rocket scientists.
Yeah.
These are the questions their kids are going to do. And we wanted a 5-minute online screen time for 2 hours of building, where the kids just go and tinker and play. And yeah, I wrote a book about innovation and entrepreneurship with David Downs a few years ago. And when I followed like really successful entrepreneurs, I found that there was one key to everybody's story. And that is that their drive and their passion and what they built now came from them tinkering as a kid. Just that time when you play, you know, when you're building your Lego blocks and you just get carried away. That creativity time when you figure out what you love is actually where most entrepreneurs have stemmed from. And so I wanted to create something that brought that back. While we're not doing assessment, we're not doing exams, I was like, how do we bring that creativity and that innovation back to our kids in a positive way, where they feel empowered and in control with their superpowers, and actually give parents a break so that they can just do whatever they're trying to do, which most people are trying to manage working full-time while doing full-time childcare.
I can like almost feel your excitement about like these young boffins like tinkering away at home like through the screen. You're super passionate about helping kids get into science, huh?
Like getting them into science and engineering, showing them that they just need paper to build. Like I've got so many different things that we can construct here. So I'm going to show you something that we built. Yes. Oh, there's so many things. Okay, here's one of them. Now, theme this week is space. So this is a paper a comet catcher. It's a little bit of origami paper, and there's some tinfoil on here. And it's one of those games that you play where you catch the comet.
Oh, yeah.
But they can build this themselves and then play all day and compete. This is my favorite. This is a tissue box astronaut spacesuit tester. So you may not have known that astronauts, actually, their spacesuit has 14 different layers, and that's to protect them from, like, they're called mini meteorites, little rocks in space. And so you have to know whether or not it's strong enough. So we have 14 pieces of tissue in here. And we've built, using a tissue box and some wooden skewers and this balloon catapult system, what we put a pea in, a little meteorite catapult system. And then you can slide your little testing kit in here and test your astronaut suit material. So, like, it's a tissue box and some toilet roll.
But kids go crazy with that stuff. Wow, that's amazing. I'm fully signing up, because I feel guilty about every time I do something like this. I'm like, little guy's watching some TV, or do you know what I mean? I feel really bad about the screen time at the moment.
We wanted that time to be, I mean, kids are allowed screen time, it's all good, but we wanted the screen time to be short, that gave them the powers to then go off and just immerse themselves in building something fun, building a little rocket or whatever it is. And this is, I'm going to show you this one, you'll like this one. This is a drinks bottle with a piece of paper, and we teach the kids how to make a miter joint, which is just cutting it at 45 degrees. And then you put a little cone rocket on the top like this, and then you squeeze it.
I do like that. That's exciting.
And we try to make everything lockdown friendly, just using stuff you have around the house.
Yeah.
Kids can be creative and learn and have fun. And we just wanted to help, just help at this time that it be positive for their future.
I love that. That's amazing. So how did you get into science, Michelle? Like, did you have like an excitable teacher like you've become guide you into the world of science? Or what's your journey?
I had a dad. So my parents didn't have any formal education, and my dad went back to school when he was an adult. When I was a kid, I had young parents. And as he brought his night school home with him, and I'm 8, he wanted to do a diploma in electrical engineering. And I sat next to him because he was learning and it looked like fun. And he was soldering some stuff. And I said, "Hey, Dad, can I have a soldering iron too?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Cool, I'm 8. This is great." So I actually learned electronics with my dad, who was learning at home and as an adult. But I didn't do well at school. I didn't have a great time at school. I wasn't very good. I'm not a good reader or writer. I'm quite slow. And so a lot of assessment in school is about being able to do an exam where you read and write, and you have to have enough time to do that. And that's not my skill. My skill set is building stuff, right? I like to build things that are fun and get the point across. There was never an exam for this. So I performed poorly at school, which was expected of me because my parents, didn't have a high school education. And so there was this box I was put in, which is fine. I mean, you have to put kids in boxes, I guess. It's easier when you're teaching. And so, yeah, I worked retail. I left school. I didn't get good grades. I didn't get into university. And I worked in retail for a while.
Really?
Yeah. Worked minimum wage, worked bars, worked everything just to pay the bills.
And where was this? In the UK?
This is in the UK at the time. Yeah. And a really funny story. Look, you don't know who your mentors are until they sort of pop out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And I'd been, because I'm on minimum wage, I've got no money, right? I'm living in a scungy one. It was a studio flat that leaked all the time, and I could never afford new things. So I'd fix my own things. I'd buy old stuff and fix it up. And people found out that I was doing this, and then people would bring me their stuff that was broken, because everybody in minimum wage is, everything's broken. You're just trying to always pay your rent. That's all you cared about. Can you pay your rent? Can you get enough food?
Yeah.
And they'd bring stuff to me and be like, hey, I need this to last another, at least till the next paycheck. Can you have a look at it for me? And so I'd tinker and I'd fix stuff, all stemming back from my 8-year-old soldering iron days.
Wow.
And yeah, one of my bosses at the time at the sports store that I worked at said, you're wasted here. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you selling shoes when you could be fixing things? And I was like, I don't know, nobody had any expectations of me. I didn't know what I was supposed to do in my life. So this is what I always thought I could do. And yeah, it was really interesting. So he introduced me to a friend, and his friend worked at a polytechnic. And I didn't know what that word meant because my parents didn't have tertiary education. And he told me it was a place you could study where you learn with your hands. And I was like, oh, I'm good with my hands. And so I ended up getting in through a system in the UK that they call clearing, which is where you don't have the grades to get into university, but they let a few students in on sort of a bit of a trusted first year program where they say, if you do well in the first year, you can stay. So I got into a polytechnic, and this guy said to me, you're an engineer. And I'm like, no way, man. They're like, because they're greasy guys in the corner. But I mean, that's not a word I've ever associated with me or ever been called. And he's like, no, you're an engineer. I can see you with your hands. You're really good. And so that's how I got in. I was 19. I'd been working minimum wage. I had 2 jobs. I worked in a sports store in the day, and I worked in a bar at night, an Irish bar. And yeah, that's how it went.
Wow. So you went straight from 19 years old and you stayed through, Polytechnic all the way till you became a doctor.
I know. I did a degree in engineering and then a master's in engineering, then moved to America and did a PhD. So go.
Oh, you did your PhD in America. Whereabouts?
I did it in New Jersey in a place called Rutgers University.
Mm-hmm.
And in between there, I worked. I never thought I was going to get a PhD. It was really interesting. I got my degree and my master's, like, cool, I'm an engineer. It's going to be awesome. And then I worked for a company that made the inside of nappies, actually. It's interesting. But we got taken over by a German company called BASF, and they had a very formal structure in there, which was you couldn't be a leading scientist or a manager in that science field unless you had a PhD, and I didn't know what one of those was. So I went back to my advisor at university and said, hey, do you guys do PhDs? And he looked at me like I was so dumb. He's like, yeah, we're a university. This is what we do. I was like, I don't really know what one is, but I think I need to get one to progress my career. Anyway, so that's how I found out about PhDs. And then, yeah, moved to America, did a PhD, and sort of lived in the States for a while, working, consulting to the tech industry, doing the big corporates, so Apple, Intel, Microsoft, all of the big ones, working in the high-tech sector. Who knew, right? A kid who was told they couldn't read or write very fast suddenly was really good with their hands.
I loved that. I don't think I knew half of that stuff about you. That's amazing.
And that's what I do now. That's why I get kids to build stuff that's useful out of tissue boxes. Because if I can get a kid to see success in something here, if they're not a great reader or writer, or even if they are, then hopefully that's, another day of success for a kid who might feel like they're falling behind.
I can also imagine that young girls don't ever get pushed towards science societally. I imagine we're massively underrepresented with, girls and women in the sciences. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, the data's really clear. In New Zealand, we hover between 9 and 13% of all of our engineers are female, whereas obviously the population is 50%. The sciences vary depending, physics is really low, computer science is pretty low, whereas the biology tend to be high. So it skews a little bit depending on discipline, but the disciplines can have some real disparities. And it's a problem, right? Here's a test I want you all to do at home. So the reason why I'm passionate about this is if the future we know is technology. Look at us. We're on Skype. We're doing all of our work now through technology. And we can only do this because we're digitally literate. You and I know how to use this program. And therefore, we're above a lot of the population in our digital knowledge that we can do this. And those people who are working remotely can do that because they have internet at home and all of these privileges that many of New Zealanders don't have. And so if I talk about the future of technology, the future of jobs is going to mean that you have to be tech savvy. And if you have to be tech savvy, you'd want the technology to be written by people like you. not by one demographic. And there's a
Yeah.
really good example. I'm going to let you do this as your homework. If you go to your Google image, if you're watching at home, and Google unprofessional hairstyles, right? And so if I said to you, unprofessional hairstyles, what do you think it would be? You'd probably think, I don't know, something stereotypical like maybe a mohawk, or, right? I'm going to let you look at unprofessional hairstyles. I'm not going to tell you the answer, and you will see how sexist and racist artificial intelligence and the algorithms are behind that. It's not going to be what you expect. And this is why I'm passionate about what we do. If we don't create technologies for everybody, we know the first ever airbags killed women and children because they were designed by men on a 70-kilo crash test male dummy. We've seen this time and time again. We're not going to create a future for our population. And so for me, I'm passionate about making sure that different voices come to the table when we're inventing new things for people. Otherwise, it's just going to continually exclude those of us who haven't been able to catch up through no fault of our own, just because how we were brought up and what we had access to.
And I guess there's a whole lot of intersectionality that goes with that as well, right?
Totally. And so, yeah, so my goal is there's one way to learn, which is school and academics and exams, and that's great. And if you can do that, please do that. It's an easy door. But if that's not the way that your brain works, I want to help kids see that you're just as successful and the world needs you just as much. And here's how you can use your skill sets to do things that are just as important as the academics.
How about when parents aren't particularly encouraging of sciences or arts because they don't see how that's going to get their kid a job or how they're going to make money? Like, what would you say to a parent like that?
Yeah, so I was, up until 3 months ago, touring around the world with a performance show. You never know what the future's going to hold. I think it's important that there's a little bit of structure around careers, but I worry that our parents know careers of their time. Yes. So when parents were, it was very formal. You were a doctor or a lawyer or, these formal things that are totally going to be disrupted by the future of technology. And so I think parents should always encourage their kids to do what they're passionate about, because a life of passion is a life of joy, I think. And if kids can find their passion, they can find the careers, I think, that work within that passion that they may not have known the names of. I mean, you think of all the careers you know now and all your friends who have jobs. When you were 10, you probably never said, I want to be one of those when I grow up.
Yeah.
And so my worry is that if we're too formal and bring our old ideas with us, we actually don't let our kids just discover what their skill set are. And skill set is what's going to be the job of the future. Your tangible skill set, what it is that you can bring, is actually going to be how you become employable, and not the job title that you have. And I think it's a different world.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I find myself as an educator and public speaker, like I have no,
and you probably, like, even 10 years ago, I'm like, hey, Richie, you're going to be this amazing public speaker. You'd be like, nah, Michelle, I'm all good.
Yeah, exactly. It's very strange. It just eventuates, right? Like you say, if you follow your passions, these doors tend to open, in my experience.
Yeah, totally.
Why New Zealand? You've gone from Rutgers University, and I mean, I know you did this body of work with Richard Branson in some tropical island somewhere. Like, why did you choose such a small, I mean, it's great now, like in the time of COVID, I'm stoked to be at the bottom of the world on an island. But generally speaking, I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that I feel quite isolated and disconnected. So why did you choose here?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So look, I'm a mixed race kid. So my mom is Hong Kong Chinese, my dad is half English, half Maltese, which means I never grew up with a culture. And my dad was a military man, so we moved every 2 or 3 years. So I never had a home. So when you have mixed culture, so you belong to many things, you have multiple languages, and you never have a place that you call home, you're always seeking it. And I was a grown up. I was 25 when people would be like, "Oh, I'm going home for Christmas," and I'm like, what does that mean? Like, where is that? And for most people, they've been brought up in one place to maybe one ethnicity or family, and they have a home based on where their childhood was, which was stable. For me, I never had that. So home to me was what I was going to create it to be. And for me, that was a place where I felt safe. I felt like I could be myself. I felt like I could offer something and have something to give. And so I went on a trek around the world and sort of tried on some different countries, and then put 2 feet in New Zealand and was like, oh yeah, no, this is my soul just put itself down and said, no, this is where you were supposed to be. This is your home. And I was like, I don't even know anything about this place. But yeah, so here I am, and this is definitely my home.
So it's really just was based on like a feeling.
Just a feel. Sounds scientific. I know it's terrible. It's opposite of what I normally do. But this is a place, I think, where ideas can grow and people are networked and communities are really strong. And that's what I was looking for.
Okay, so in this time, well, I mentioned COVID-19. I'm seeing some wild shit on the internet. Like, people are talking like burning down cell phone towers in England. I see really smart, well-educated people talking about the fact that this is actually like a government conspiracy and it was manufactured in a lab and all these sorts of things. Like, can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, conspiracy theories, those are my favorite topic. Look, the challenge is science is incredibly complex and it has a complex process. And most people aren't invited into that process. So most people don't understand how science actually works, that it's a long process, that it requires peer review and lots of different people looking at the research. So it takes time for things to come out. And scientists can never really say never. We can never say 100% this is not true. And so as the second we leave a margin of doubt, which we have to as scientists, people who don't understand why we've left that margin jump in and go, oh yeah, but they weren't 100% sure, therefore all of these things could happen. And also the science of the invisible makes it really scary. So if you don't understand fundamental physics of how your phone works, if you don't understand what a virus is, because it's this tiny thing that could be everywhere and you're petrified of it, it's really easy then to jump to the easiest conclusion, which is how we've always worked our brains, which is to tell a story that sounds tangible and go, oh, well, this story says this. It must be true. And so part of it is a lack of scientific literacy, and part of it is a scientific community just not explaining how we do science. That we can't say 100% no or yes in anything. We sort of say, oh, yeah, we believe that this. But you and I, when we talk, I would say, oh, it was 100% right. Like we talk in that language, and scientists will never do that. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So the 5G cell towers is an interesting one. There's a few rumors going around that 5G is the cause of the COVID.
Yeah, I know.
COVID spread. I've heard two great theories. One is that viruses talk on the 5G wavelengths, and then they use that wavelengths to choose which host to infect. That doesn't happen. Viruses don't communicate, especially via telephone or via 5G. The second one I've heard is that 5G reduces our immune system, and that's not acceptable. That's not true. There's been so much evidence around 5G. And I think people are afraid of 5G because it's new, but you're probably using your phone right now, which is 4G. You might have a 3G. Like the technology is the same. It's just the little frequency is slightly different, but we've been doing these G technologies since you had a phone. And before then, we're using the same, it's a radio wave. So if you used to listen to a radio, it's the same technology that you listen to the radio with. And so I don't see people, in the 80s with their ghetto blasters on their shoulder go, no, we can't have people just don't understand the technology. So people are saying that it's reducing our immune system. We have so many studies showing that it doesn't affect that. I mean, if you look at the science behind it, 5G, because it's a higher frequency, has a lower penetration depth, meaning it can penetrate you less rather than more. I think higher frequency means worse. Actually, high frequency means it can't penetrate your skin. But all of these words are science words, and I understand why they're confusing and they're scary. And it's easy to believe, oh, this new technology came in and COVID came in, and therefore they must be related. If you look at where COVID is all around the world, it's in countries where there is no 5G. So it doesn't really make sense.
It's in countries with like no 4G, right? Like, yeah. Okay. You seem very compassionate, and rather than being rude and disrespectful towards people who don't have the knowledge that you have, you seem like really, I guess, forgiving of that.
Oh, because everybody's, these conspiracy theories come from fear. And fear has come from scientists not communicating things in a great way. I believe it's our fault. I believe we don't make great, beautiful YouTube videos that convince the other way. We write boring scientific peer-reviewed papers that are behind a firewall that you'll never see and you wouldn't understand anyway, because there's so much jargon in it. So my compassion is around, I used to be one of these people. My family are these people. My mum still calls me and says she read something in the Daily Mail yesterday about the moon. Yesterday she said, there's a fortune teller who's 12 in India, and he said that the moon phases predicted this COVID, and it's going to be okay. We're going to be done by the end of May. And I'm like, Mom, the world doesn't work like that. So for as long as I'll have my mom calling me with these stories, I'll continue this kindness mission of how to explain science in a way that hopefully is digestible and help people with their fears, because it must be petrifying. If you buy a 5G tower and you think it's the COVID producer, it must be scary. And so how can I help explain to you it's not scary, and here's where these stories have come from, and this is what we actually know.
I find this incredibly refreshing to hear, because I guess in my broader field, which is social sciences, I still feel that things are like stuck in ivory towers, and there's at least if I mean, Twitter's not a particularly good litmus test of human kindness, but like I find that people.
It is the opposite of human.
It is, right? I appreciate you saying that, but a lot of the way that academics or even like well-educated journalists in a particular field of interest communicate is quite scathing of like Joe Public, and there's quite like a denigration of regular, quote unquote, regular people. Do you think that's true of academics? And
look,
sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes you're clearly.
I was an academic, and I've lived in that bubble, and I've chosen to leave, and that is part of the reason why I've chosen to leave. Deep down, I am always going to be that 18-year-old kid who didn't get the grades they needed to at high school, who worked minimum wage and 2 jobs. Deep down, that is always who I am. Yeah. Now, I'm privileged because I had a journey that took me through education, but deep down, it only would have taken one closing door for me to still be working minimum wage, as many jobs as I can to try and pay rent. Like, that is who I am, and that's who my people are. And so I will always work hard to make sure that there's a message there. When I worked in academia, I didn't know people like me working there. They were privately school educated. They'd been through a system that was very different. And so their view of the world was very different. And I think sometimes it's hard to have that empathy with a world that you don't know. And the academic trail does allow a certain type of person who was good at school, and if you're good at school, maybe that's because you went to a good school, to succeed through. And I think part of it is the way that we hire through that system, and the way that system works means that it's not actually diverse. And that's how an ivory tower can be made. It's because people who live in an academic bubble surround themselves by those sorts of people and just believe that this is how the rest of the world lives, and there's a few crazies out there who don't get it. It's not how the world is at all.
I know, you see that every election period, right? When people are like completely flabbergasted that like Boris Johnson won or something. But it's because they surround themselves with people who have got exactly the same worldview, and there's no diversity of thought in their day-to-day existence. I don't know how to break that down though. Like, I find myself in this weird position where some days I'm talking to like drug dealers and gang members, and other days I'm talking to politicians, and it all gets a bit weird, and I get in trouble publicly sometimes because I don't know. I have this. I don't know, but do you know what I mean? Like,
because you're making it different, Richie. Because you're standing up. People who stand up get in trouble all the time. That's what I think. And sometimes, the thing about politics and the thing about the media is they're always looking for stories. And so something that may be totally normal for somebody else will be picked on for you because you have profile. The same for me. And we have to sometimes get thicker skin, because both you and I are on a mission to actually make positive change for those who may not be able to speak up for themselves. And with that comes good and bad. And sometimes, we get picked apart for it.
Do you really? Because I'm sitting here talking with you. I'm like, you're like the nicest person I know. I can't believe I don't spend more time with you. Do you really get picked on?
Yeah, Twitter is probably the meanest place right now. And I don't block because I think it's important to hear people's opinions. Like, I'm on some of the anti-5G Facebook groups, not because I agree with them, but it's important for me to be outside of my bubble. It's important for me to see what people who are not like me are saying. And yeah, people are mean. I write for the Herald every week. I get letters all the time from, some person who decided to spend 2 days writing a very long letter about what they don't like about me. And that's the world. That's okay.
Really? Because does it upset you emotionally? Because it really bothers me. Like, I've had some like, you should just fucking kill yourself, and people say horrible things to me on the internet. And I used to try and explain my point of view or my experience, but what I've learned about myself is I'm actually a very defensive person, and I don't actually take people being aggressive towards me particularly well. Not that I'm incapable of a conversation. I'm just kind of like, if you say something mean, I will want to say something mean back, and then it just becomes too much for me. Like there's some deeper.
This is what I do. If somebody is mean to me, whether it's to my face or on the internet, here's what I do. I look at that person and I go, would I take or value their advice if it was for something else? If I said to this person, hey, I'm thinking of, investing in stocks, or whatever it is, would I value that opinion? No, I wouldn't. So why am I valuing the opinion for their negative right now?
Yeah, sure.
So why value the opinion of somebody that you wouldn't value the opinion of for anything else in your life? Just don't do it. There will be people close to you who will say negative things, and they might be trying to tell you that you need to sort something out. That's important. If you value their opinion at the times, if you value who they are, then listen. But if it's just some random on the internet, just leave it. You wouldn't take fashion advice from them, right? You wouldn't take spending advice from them. Why take any other advice?
Yeah, well, that's where I just block people. Like, because I used to get into this back and forth, and what about this? And then it would like escalate, and then I'd say something stupid or whatever. But now I'm kind of like, I wouldn't listen to you, like you say, in real life. I just click block. How did you have you always been that patient and kind?
No, I used to cry. I used to get really upset. It used to really hurt me. And it was my husband said, why are you listening to these people? You don't even know who they are. And look at their Twitter feed. Like, you don't value anything that they say.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. And that was it. That was a flick for me. I was like, that's it. I'm just not valuing those opinions anymore. And I'll hear them, but then they go into the other box. Because otherwise you just carry it all. And this is other people's stuff. And they probably haven't even remembered writing this stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, some people just like to be mean for being mean's sake.
Yeah.
I read a lot about that. I find, what would we call it? I find the dynamics and the nature of the internet like a fascinating topic in and of itself. And there's this emerging literature around when people will say something nasty, they don't see the emotional impact it has on the intended target. And so it doesn't have the same weight for them as it does if it's in person, right?
And you and I are high empathy people, right? So we couldn't understand how somebody could be mean to somebody because we would feel that. But people who have low empathy, they don't even think about it.
Do you think we're less and less of an empathetic culture?
No, I think the platforms that we use can help us it can take the face and the emotion away from it. And I don't think you see the consequences of it sometimes. But no, I look at us now. I think New Zealanders in a highly empathetic culture. If we weren't, we wouldn't be in lockdown.
Yeah. Because we're thinking about our most vulnerable people, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with the government? Because you helped advise the government, right?
So I was a communicator. I helped communicate some of the information that was coming out because obviously it was highly scientific. And the Ministry of Health was coming out with all of these new words for people, coronavirus, COVID, transmission. And so I just, tried to use my skills in any way I could to donate that to help New Zealand to understand some of these complex things and what that meant for you every day in your life.
Do you think that we've done a good job as a government? I mean, do you think the government's done a good job of communicating everything that they need to communicate? You're like, God damn, I helped do it. So yes, but...
The data is there. If you look at how other countries are dealing with it and coping, especially the US is a great example of how communication wasn't clear, lockdown wasn't clear in all states until only now all 50 states are locked down.
Wow.
I think we're going to be seen and held up as one of the most proactive for people's health in this whole COVID crisis around what we did, the high numbers of testing. The alert levels were amazing. I think the alert levels really helped people to get a sense of what was coming and be able to prepare for that rather than just not knowing every day. So I think we're going to be seen as a beautiful showcase in how to manage it well, how to communicate well. I mean, look at Ashley. He's got his whole fan club now. Everybody tunes in at one
Dude, I love that dude. I want to put him on a t-shirt. Like, he's the man.
And so we're holding up these people who have worked so hard their whole lives behind the scenes to keep us safe. And finally, we put one of these people up front. And this is how it works. This is how these decisions are made. And I think it's a great way to show the inside of us. I'm super proud of New Zealand. I'm super proud of where we are. I think our numbers are showing that we did the right thing for our people. And the economy is just going to have to adjust, sadly. And we're going to be in a new norm of business after this.
Helen Clark said it best. She said, look, economies recover, dead people don't. It's as simple as that, huh?
It's totally true. It's going to be hard for people. There's going to be a big shift. People would have made a lot of money out of some industries that really aren't going to exist for New Zealand for a while.
Oh, I'm the same as you. Like, I went from being really busy, booked up with public speaking, my gym was busy, to zero. And I was, I had to cry when I shut the doors of the gym not because of the economic impact of it, but because I love it, just the way you love science. But yeah, so where's it from here? Like, if we do start going down the threat rating, can we open the borders up? Like, when can I go see my friends in Bangkok again? Like, what's the deal, Michelle?
Yeah, great question. Hey, it's going to be a new normal for our Richie. Travel's probably going to be pretty restricted for at least a few. So the plan right now is to see how quickly we could possibly make a vaccine. If scientists can make a vaccine and test a vaccine and then scale up a vaccine, which is the slow part, actually having factories that can make enough vaccines.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So the inventing bit is the easy bit, but then you have to test it, which takes a long time. You test on animals, and then you've got to test on guinea pig humans who are willing to literally give their whole life for something that may or may not work or could potentially have side effects that kill them. When we've done all of that, then we have to find a factory that actually can make as many things.
Jesus, yeah.
People, it's serious. A vaccine modifies your immune system. Your immune system is the thing that protects you against the whole world. If you stuff that up, you have a whole population who could be susceptible to something else. So the vaccine thing is going to take a while, and it should take a while. We have a head start because we were already trying to work on vaccines for SARS and MERS, which are also coronavirus. But it's going to take a while. And the borders, I think, should be pretty tight for a lot of countries for a while as we try and manage it. The great thing about the virus is it only survives through human transmission. So if the whole world actually pulled together, and this is part of the challenge. It's great that New Zealand did their thing, but the rest of the world did other things. And so the virus is still thriving in other communities. We have to stop the transmission. If you stop the transmission, you stop the virus. That's it. We look at SARS. We totally eliminated SARS because we stopped the transmission. But actually, you have to get the world to stop together.
Sure.
And we haven't done that, which is why we're in these challenges now. Richie, I don't think you're going to go to Bangkok anytime soon, I'm afraid. You like your friends. And I think the borders will be pretty strictly controlled for a bit, because we know if we start bringing people in, we're just
going to start back again. Yeah.
And the economy is going to struggle with that. So it's going to be tough for a while. We'll see how we do with the vaccine, and then we'll make some decisions as we keep going.
Michelle, it's been a real joy talking with you today.
Nice to see you, Richie.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Because you're, like you said, you're literally like advising the government and helping them. So thank you for coming and talking with me on my little YouTube platform. Just quickly before you finish, where can people find you? Where can people support your work? Where can people sign up for projects that they can do with their kids?
So if you have kids and you want to sign up to our program, it's for 7 to 11-year-olds, and it's at Nano Girls Lab. This is my lab, and I'm Nano Girl, so it's really simple. nanogirlslab.com. And if you have disposable income and you can afford to help some of our kids that can't afford it, we have a donation button if you want to help. We're doing, for example, all the Eat My Lunch free lunches and packs. We're doing free worksheets in there for those kids because they don't have digital devices, that use the food packaging as their science equipment so that they can do experiments with that. So we're doing a whole bunch of stuff. If you can help us sort of make it through the next few weeks, we're trying to do as much as we can for free, but those who can afford to pay, that would be amazing.
And you're on social media too, right? People want to follow your work?
Everywhere. You just Google Nano Girl and I will come up. I have a YouTube channel. I have all the things. I'm in all the places. And Nano Girls Lab is also in all the places with free experiments too.
Yo, awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for like who you are and what you do. Like, I really want to acknowledge it. Yeah.
It's why we're friends.
Thank you, mate. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
Bye.